Yeah.
Okay.
That old logo
Ready?
is so much.
We're gonna get my gavel. We're live, we're live. This is Senate Finance, we're back. We did get this list of questions from the Ethics Commission, basically saying there's no inherent problem unless the nominee is receiving funds that are based on the performance of the company he formerly worked for, and we will send this to him and tell him he might assume we're going to ask him that next week, and we will send an email up to the fifth floor and ask if they do vet people for potential.
You're not going to ask them if they vet people, because we assume during their due diligence that they do vet people. What we
Yeah.
want to know is, based on their vetting, what did they learn about these kinds of situations or
Okay.
the potential?
Senator Brock is going to, our official interrogator is going to help Charlotte compose an email and send it on our behalf.
But I'd like to know, what if
Yeah.
any,
No, I would too.
what were the results of those inquiries, which presumably any responsible person hiring something or
Yeah.
vetting someone for that would do, and presumably they did.
We've, looks like we may be appointing a new tax commissioner.
What?
Commissioner Bolio told me yesterday, and he started with, I assume you've heard my news.
Wow.
Is it public or on YouTube?
As far as I know.
So,
Anyway, at some point,
like,
so I,
Yeah, he's had long experience in
Yeah.
this department and in Vermont, and that's particularly relevant, because so often we have, somebody comes out of the legislature or someplace like that who becomes tax commissioner, as opposed to somebody who's grown up in the department for a long period of time and has particular depth and expertise that Greg does.
that department had some of the worst morale in state government at one point. A lot of longtime employees left. It was so bad. And Craig has really
Yeah.
turned that around
Mhm.
to where I've been told it is one of the happiest departments in state government.
An
And that-
indication of what
Yeah.
he's planning to do, based on.
I do, he told me yesterday.
Maybe
and I-
we should have discussed
Okay.
this on.
He's going to better places. At least one of the few places I've moved to in Lowell, Vermont. So anyway.
Why?
No. Still in New England. So anyway, thoughts on what we heard today. A lot of that is gonna fall to the education committee, but we do have foundation formula. I think what I heard is there, other than leaving out school meals, which in the governor's budget, they have taken an awful lot of things that we do waiting for, which is tax capacity, not actual dollars. And we don't know or have any control over whether or not that money is, that capacity is actually used to help those kids, or it just lowers tax rates in some towns. We don't know if that money goes to those kids and if it buys any improvement. This will put a lot of those weights and other things like categorical transportation into the formula. I think what's happening is they're using the PICUS study, and that's here. We'll find it. I read it last year, and it goes through. They look at schools nationwide. They may even go international, and they look at what do schools that produce good educational excellence, and what do they have? What happens in those schools? And then what does it cost? And they come up with their algorithm, which is beyond my math skills. They're using that PICUS formula. That's where the one nurse to 750 students. Well, they're looking at a school with 2,000 students. I think what they're going to do is they're going to give you that money. And they haven't gotten to the governance that's coming next. That's either going to go to the district elected school board, or it's going to go to the local educational advisory committee, i.e. our old school board, which will probably be elected, to decide what they do with that block grant. So they're funding one nurse for 750 students. They might hire one nurse at the district level and send it around. The school may decide they need a nurse on site 5 days a week and spend their allocation that way, and maybe say, but we're not going to do something else over here. I think that's how it's going to work. I think they're going to, the hope is, this is my take on what I've heard, is that funding is going to prove challenging for some schools, and that will encourage them to merge. My concern is that assumes there's some place that can hold them. And many of them are still in schools with some significant maintenance issues, health and safety, and we're going to hear about that tomorrow. And so do we put money into fixing those small schools, or are we going to find a way to build something bigger and better that can hold 2 or 3 of those schools, if all the rest? I'm not up in your districts where your towns or schools may be 40 miles apart. I'm here where they're all within 10 to 15 miles. And
we get up in the northern part of the Northeast district, which is not my Senate district.
right,
It's, there are no schools, actually, there are no schools, between Canaan and Lunenburg, and that's across the river.
one of the special ed, it goes to Canada for special ed, one of the
Yeah.
school maybe sends their kids
No.
to Canada.
If you're between Canaan and Newport, I mean, that's where you have to
It's a lot of open space.
right.
They still have some moose up there. Yeah. It's the only place in Vermont. Well, no, we've still got some moose signs around here, but.
Yeah.
Nobody's.
They had moose on my property from time to time.
Yeah, in Berlin.
Yeah, we've had them on Main Street in Montpelier, but that was 10 years ago, before the tick population started. I'm assuming in survival, they've moved north where it's still cold enough to kill ticks. Because I haven't heard of moose strikes. Senator Doyle has hit 2 moose and lived to tell about it, which is probably a record. But he drove Moose Alley every day, but yeah,
Moose Alley, wow.
yeah, up to,
Johnson.
yeah.
Yeah, Johnson from here to Johnson.
Only our other committees got.
Moose Alley. There's signs everywhere. Like, stop now, there's probably a moose. But even up there, we had a cruiser hit one up there. I haven't heard of any moose strikes. My theory is they're moving north just to survive. Or the ticks are killing them. It's been unpleasant. So anyway, yeah, we're gonna have to look at those maps. We're gonna have to look at some school capacity. We're gonna have to look at the funding formula, which would be more simple.
when we talk about school construction, do you think that any of that will touch upon like bonded debt and how it might be
Oh, yes.
handled in the consolidation?
It will be, yes, not by me, because I am not an economist by any means, but Chris Root and John will both be speaking to those pieces. Yes,
Tomorrow, they are going to be in Senate Ed, and we are going to zoom in since Chris has told me it's all slides. So we have to get here and do a joint with them and see
I'll give a
their,
15-minute intro and then.
yeah. But no, bonded indebtedness, we've had the amount of debt we're supposed to incur reduced. There is a bond, no, there is a, what are they
The
called?
bond bank?
No, bond bank is where they. You go there if you're a municipality
know,
and
that's what I'm
they
trying to figure out
manage
what
it,
you-
but no, this is the debt. It's got a name, yeah, Paul Giuliani was in charge of it for years, I think. But they determined, and it's again, a federal, it's Wall Street, that if you have too much debt, like if you don't have enough reserves, you have more risk, therefore they charge you higher interest rates to
Yes.
cover.
Yeah,
their
we
risk.
bonded for,
Like your movies?
yes,
Yeah.
we bonded in Burlington for our high school,
Yeah.
but we did have to make sure that our score was not going to be adversely affected by, taking out this fairly large bond that we are paying off as we speak.
Yes,
Luckily, they're looking up to get a good rate.
yes, you did get in at a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Construction costs have
Yeah.
gone up. And
It's supposed to be lumber. What was I saying the other day? Lumber's supposed to be going up.
I did get an answer to my PCP question too, which
Okay.
that 10 million that the governor mentioned in the budget. I asked someone from the AOE, and that is money that will go to either funds, money that's already been encumbered to pay off various projects or projects that are already in the works. So my understanding is there's not going to be any like new. So we'll see. That's where it stands now.
Educational Buildings Finance Agency. Is that the one you're thinking with Paul? Julian?
Never heard of it.
No, I think it's like in the treasurer's office, it's a volunteer board.
Bond bank.
Tom Galanka, who's now up at UVM, was chairing that.
Who's trying?
Tom Galanka, last time we had someone come talk to us. But he's now on the board at UVM Medical Center.
Mhm.
He's Montpelier resident. Debt is something advisory committee. But anyway, they tell us how much debt we should have to. And there were times when some people in this building thought we should be able to take out more debt.
That's the Educational Buildings Finance Agency. I'm pretty sure that's.
Do you think it's in there?
Yeah,
It may be,
it's a 3-member board, that resides in the treasurer's office,
okay,
and
Did we sunset that though, Randy?
we did, I was on that board 20 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
You were also on the sunset thing.
Was it?
Yeah, when the
Sunset.
sunset, whatever it was called, that we got rid of a bunch of boards over a number of years.
no, this one is very active.
Yeah, it, in effect, visits, Wall Street, among other things, or listens to analysts and does some visitation, but it kind of analyzes how much debt the state has as a whole and whether or not it's reasonable given what impact having that debt will have on the bond rating agencies and the ultimate, where the state's at. That's how we got to the 3 stars,
Yeah.
many years ago, from 2 or whatever, we had 2 plus.
It's our.
We got the 3 stars. We've since lost the 3 stars.
Yeah.
But it was by doing a variety of things, keeping the debt in hand,
Mhm.
making sure that we always pay the debt, which we do on a timely basis, that we always pass. This Vermont is the only state that is not required by law or the Constitution to, not go into deficit funding, but we never do regardless of who's in charge,
No,
which administration is charged, and that was a plus. And then the last plus was we got our audits done on time for the first time in many years back in 2006. 2005, we did first time.
who's audited?
Hmm?
Who was audited then?
I wasn't.
That's what I thought. Okay, so anyway, I'm still listening and learning on this. Eventually, Julia was there today. She's going to do some work for us for next week on the property values and taxing capacities in each of these districts. We ask kind of, what is the relative income and poverty levels? How do these districts match up in ability to raise money? I think we know that the Northeast one has traditionally been the least able to raise money. It is our forest. I think we know that Chittenden is our richest. The rest of us have a few
It's in the
mountain
deviations.
areas in the middle that
Yeah.
are up, but some poorer areas.
Yeah.
I don't think Bolton counts as poor, but
But the deviation's only 2 with 5 districts.
Yeah.
That's not there. I mean. it's
You
not
know,
like it was.
and they just pick these districts because that's how the superintendents have set themselves up in their association. We can move those line, if it comes to meeting Brigham, rather than up and down, we can do back and forth. Who
Yeah.
cares about the mountain in the middle? But this is their proposal. We're going to change it, and Representative Bongartz and I today, we're both on the same wavelength. Our intention is we're going to develop a bill. We're not going to do like last year where the House, because this is a revenue bill, the House usually does the heavy lifting and sends it to us. Only last year we got nothing. And so
You got something. It was
I
just really late.
got the commission. So we are going to develop a Senate bill, which I was told today is going to go at its own speed. No one will hold us up in rules, but we do need to put some wheels on this thing pretty soon. And then we'll do what we've traditionally done, which is a strike all amendment and put ours on the bill they send us, and then we'll get together in a committee of conference and we'll work out the details. I don't think we're going to be that far apart unless one of us really veers off from the governor's proposal. I think we'll see something similar to this proposal, meaning some kind of foundation formula with a lot of changes in detail. Just my sense as to where we're going to go, but
The number of districts in the district arrangement, I think will be one thing it probably will change somewhat.
yeah, I think as they said, well, we have the governor.
So
We'll have it next week.
we would just argue as to whether or not the change is really going to be that material, or just given the size of the.
Yeah.
There's not enough detail to their proposal to,
Not yet.
I mean, they are making it up as they go along, so. I think we wait for them to give us the details. I don't know.
We are.
I don't necessarily think waiting for them to give us the details is the best route, because they don't know exactly what they're doing yet on some really major things.
Right, and so we are going to be doing that. We're waiting. Joint fiscal is still trying to get enough understanding and information so they can do modeling for us. I'm trying, I forget, are we doing it Friday? Or next week? We had Jake come in and tell us this is their new proposal for the homestead exemption and, you know, basing it on value. Tax commissioner stopped in yesterday afternoon and he said they do have runs as to winners and losers. They've done that modeling. So we can take a look at what groups are going to see it. My gut says you're gonna have an awful lot of unhappy senior citizens, especially in high value communities that have owned their house for 50 years, but are living on Social Security and.
But that's only one small piece of.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I want to work it all out.
Thank you very much. The elephant that's in my room, may not be in everyone's room, but it's in mine, is when do we educate or when does the public get smart on what's happening? And when do we get their way in and their opinions on this very grandiose plan? I want my voters to feel good about what's happening.
We are going to have our voters.
I mean,
One of my initial thoughts is that the commission is planning on doing public hearings, and personally, they've been kind of buckshot as to, you know, we had teachers show up in St. Albans, so we heard about teachers' concerns. Well, we had a different group show up. And so they now have a consultant to help them do public engagement. And I haven't had a chance to talk to the other money chairs,
Well,
but they have, the commission has talked to them
Yeah.
about, and it was really the brainchild of House Education. So, and Representative Conlon is on the commission. So I think he's really in the driver's seat to say, to me, that would be a very constructive use
that would be.
for them
Yeah.
who don't have a vested interest in this.
But to Ruth's point, like, we don't know, what are we sharing with the public at this point? Because, and none of it's gonna be real to them until like the real world implications are spelled out.
Yes, and I'll get my first taste of that in Woodbury this evening.
Okay, let us know.
There's a town that has a very small school,
Very old.
a very old school. I don't think there's even railings on the stairs up to the stage. They're gonna make us.
The basketball court still has the old Mike and Key painted on it.
I mean, it's
1914.
it's an unpaved parking lot. But the school board was going to close it and people voted not to.
Yeah.
It's a town that has put a lot into its small school. And you know, I can tell them you're going to get a foundation formula. I can tell them you're going to get, I'll take it with me, X amount of dollars, but it is going to have the weighting included in that, transportation included in that.
They won't know what that means. I
I
mean,
know.
I think that the thing that people are are going to be upset about is what's happening with my school
Yes,
and my kids.
yes.
And that's not addressed in this policy.
No,
in
this
proposal
is-
at
And
all.
schools that are small by design, not by necessity, are going to be penalized. I mean, that's been made
Yes.
clear. Yeah.
They are going to get a set amount. If they can't live under it, too bad. On the other hand, I know they can't get an art teacher out here. They can't keep one because the art teacher wants an art room and traveling around in her station wagon with all her art supplies. She can go get a job somewhere else and have an art room, probably in your community. You know, and so that there are issues with that. In the meantime, these kids are getting art or music.
I hear you.
They're one of the more affluent groups.
I'm not sure this proposal will help them get art. So that's the thing, like, it's not, there's not that.
No,
one
not
line,
starting
you know,
out, no.
and there's no detail about how they would organize schools or how
No,
those decisions
that's
would
next
be
week.
made, and no detail about how it would transition or how the governance would work. So I think that the things that the foundation formula is something that superintendents and school boards might understand and care about, but I'm thinking about like the actual people who send their kids to those schools or live in those communities.
They are
don't
not
know what
going
this is about.
to. Your local school board will not be voting on how much to spend.
There won't be local school boards.
That's right.
There will be local educational advisory.
Because student advisor, they got school advisory council.
Yeah.
That's what they call it.
And I gather it will be a meeting. And they will decide how to spend the money that they are given.
Who's they?
I don't
The
know that they
advisory.
would be, I don't
No,
think
it's
that's
gonna be
true.
the
no.
LEA. It's gonna
Yeah,
decide
yeah,
what
the
money goes.
advisories are just advisory.
The advisory are just like
Yeah.
PTA.
She said, like the idea of some more distributed decision making over the budget, so.
Yeah.
How to spend it.
Yeah, I don't want people in Burlington deciding how up in Richford, they're choosing to prioritize.
I think what'll happen is you'll have, schools and principals will make budget requests of the LEA for the programming that they want to provide that community and that school. And then the LEA has to make sense of all those budget requests.
See, I think the school will get the flat grant for all the kids that it
No.
has. You don't think so?
Well, I don't think-
That gives
I don't
us
think there's
questions for
any-
next
The
week.
detail in there, I mean, one of the questions is how do they distribute money across the district? And how do they do so equitably, especially in a district that includes 4 members of this committee are just our schools, you know, how do they decide, you know, up in St. Albans versus Middlebury versus Burlington area, you know, how much to get and how to
Right.
equalize it. And that is, there's nothing in the proposal that I've seen that even
No,
addresses
they
this at
said
all.
they will.
And that is the
next
key
week.
to equity in terms of, you
Yeah.
know, that's where Brigham comes into play a
Yes.
lot more. And they're not addressing that at all, and I've seen no
No.
details.
And I'm
about it.
very, sorry, go ahead.
They will do it the same way an Act 46 district does it right now, but on a larger scale. We have 12 plus member, 12 districts that merged into one Act 46 district, and they are doing exactly that, albeit on a smaller scale. But that's already happening in the state of Vermont.
Yeah, but I think the districts that we have right now, for the most part, and I know that there
Yeah.
is one that's really huge at the Northeast Kingdom, but for the most part, they cover much smaller. Regions.
It's on
So
it's on a different scale, obviously.
And then the school board, I mean, the school board is much, much further away
Right.
in this model than it is.
No, I
in
know,
the current
the
model.
scale's different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like what you were describing, and I hope that.
Yeah, I mean, this is their proposal.
Yeah.
You know,
It's their proposal, but I mean, at some point, the legislature is going to be expected to sign on to it. I am loath to sign on to a plan that could have really bad unintended consequences for not just my district, but for the state. So that's why this hurry up mentality is not sitting well.
Yeah.
Because the legislature could end up taking the blame for something that's not fully baked.
Oh, we will. We are,
We will.
we will.
Man.
Yeah, but I mean, we're dealing with information that's coming as the information comes to us. We are gonna take those proposals and we're gonna do what we're gonna do with them. We're not gonna rubber stamp and we're not gonna bat them out. But remember last year? And you know, we're up at 5% on top of that. And this all just adds to the unaffordability of housing in this state. We have to do something.
I know, but this plan may not lower costs. That's my own.
Well, that's our job to figure it out. In Chittenden County, it may not, because you've already got big schools for Vermont. But in other counties, it may. We just need to work it out.
So your points that are like at the end, when after the YouTube went off, I just, because I was intentionally trying to get off of YouTube, but I caught the secretary and my biggest concern with something that she said was the 2-year aggressive timeline. I said, the harder and faster you push on something, the more friction you create. It's my experience in politics. But then she elaborated. She said, well, it's 2 years to start these in motion so that districts can start planning. And she said, we owe you a much more detailed timeline. So I really see a 5-year phase in at minimum. And so the 2-year thing comment was scary to me. And I definitely want to peel that onion apart a little bit more to know what they're envisioning and overlaying with what I think would be feasible.
And this is a work in progress. It's gonna change as we work on it.
We'll have language and models and that's where the conversation starts from.
So we can chuck it all, set the yield and go home.
Yes, we can.
We have default yield.
Yeah, that's right, we do.
Default.
So we're gonna have to take some action at some point, and I have, so we will see where it's going. My sense is we may need to raise some transition money to move this thing forward. So we will see where that goes.
Sunset. Transition body. Revenue sources, sunset.
Yeah.
All right, we're done.
We are out, we are adjourned, we can go out live.
So